Introduction. September 1st, 1939. At 4:45 in the morning, German forces crossed into Poland without a declaration of war, and the world plunged into the most devastating conflict in human history. World War II would last 6 years, engulf every continent except Antarctica, claim over 70 million lives, and reshape the global order forever. From the beaches of Normandy to the islands of the Pacific, from the streets of Stalingrad to the skies over Britain, this was a truly global war. This is the story of how it began, how it was fought, and how it ended. The road to war. The seeds of World War II were planted in the aftermath of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles imposed crushing penalties on Germany, massive reparations, territorial losses, and restrictions on its military. The German economy collapsed, hyperinflation destroyed savings, and unemployment soared. Into this chaos rose Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, promising to restore German greatness and overturn the humiliation of Versailles. Hitler became chancellor in 1933 and quickly consolidated power, establishing a totalitarian dictatorship. He began secretly rearming Germany, violating the Treaty of Versailles. In 1936, German troops marched into the demilitarized Rhineland. The world watched, but did nothing. In 1938, Hitler annexed Austria in the Anschluss, again without resistance. Then came Czechoslovakia. At the Munich conference in September 1938, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain agreed to let Germany take the Sudetenland, believing this would satisfy Hitler's territorial ambitions. Chamberlain returned to London claiming he had achieved peace for our time. He was tragically wrong. In March 1939, Germany seized the rest of Czechoslovakia. Britain and France finally drew a line. If Germany attacked Poland, there would be war. On August 23, 1939, the world was shocked when Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, ideological enemies, signed a non-aggression pact. Secretly, they agreed to divide Poland between them. 9 days later, Germany invaded. Blitzkrieg and early German victories. The German military introduced a revolutionary form of warfare, Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. Rather than the static trench warfare of World War I, Blitzkrieg used coordinated attacks with fast-moving tanks, dive bombers, and motorized infantry to punch through enemy lines and encircle defenders. Poland fell in just over a month. For several months, there was an eerie calm on the Western Front, the phony war. But in April 1940, Germany struck again, invading Denmark and Norway. Then, on May 10th, German forces swept through Belgium and the Netherlands, bypassing France's supposedly impregnable Maginot Line. The French and British armies were outmaneuvered and pushed to the coast. At Dunkirk, over 300,000 Allied troops were evacuated across the English Channel in a desperate rescue operation involving military vessels and civilian boats. It was a miracle of survival, but France was doomed. Paris fell on June 14th, and France surrendered on June 22nd. The ceremony took place in the same railway car where Germany had surrendered in 1918, Hitler's moment of revenge. Britain now stood alone against Nazi Germany. Winston Churchill, who had become Prime Minister in May, rallied his nation with defiant speeches, promising to fight on whatever the cost may be. The Battle of Britain raged from July to October 1940, as the Luftwaffe attempted to destroy the Royal Air Force and prepare for an invasion. British pilots, outnumbered but determined, fought in the skies above southern England. The RAF prevailed, forcing Hitler to postpone his invasion plans indefinitely. The war goes global. In June 1941, Hitler made what would prove to be his most fateful decision. He invaded the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa involved over 3 million German troops, the largest military invasion in history. Hitler expected the Soviet Union to collapse within weeks, calling it a rotten structure that would come crashing down. Initially, his confidence seemed justified. German forces advanced hundreds of miles, capturing millions of Soviet soldiers and approaching Moscow and Leningrad. But the invasion stalled as winter approached. The Germans, expecting a quick victory, hadn't prepared for the brutal Russian winter. Temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees, soldiers froze to death, tanks wouldn't start, and supply lines stretched dangerously thin. The year 1942 marked the extent of Axis expansion. Then, slowly, the tide began to turn. In June 1942, American forces defeated the Japanese Navy at the Battle of Midway, sinking 4 Japanese aircraft carriers and shifting the balance of power in the Pacific. It was the first major Japanese defeat. In North Africa, British forces under General Bernard Montgomery defeated the legendary German commander Erwin Rommel at the Battle of El Alamein in October 1942. Churchill later said, "Before Alamein, we never had a victory. After Alamein, we never had a defeat." But the most brutal turning point came at Stalingrad. From August 1942 to February 1943, German and Soviet forces fought a nightmarish battle for this industrial city on the Volga River. The fighting was savage, hand-to-hand combat in factories, apartments, and sewers. Nearly 2 million people died. When the surrounded German Sixth Army finally surrendered in February 1943, it marked the beginning of Germany's long retreat from the Soviet Union. The Allies were also winning the Battle of the Atlantic. German U-boats had been strangling Britain's supply lines, but new technology, radar, sonar, and long-range aircraft turned the tables. By mid-1943, the Atlantic was safe for Allied shipping. In July 1943, the Allies invaded Sicily, and soon the Italian mainland. Mussolini was overthrown, and Italy switched sides, though German forces continued fighting there. The final push. By 1944, the Allies were ready for their greatest gamble, the invasion of Nazi-occupied France. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, over 150,000 Allied troops landed on 5 beaches in Normandy. It was the largest amphibious invasion in history. Soldiers waded through withering machine gun fire on beaches code-named Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Casualties were heavy, especially at Omaha Beach, but the Allies gained a foothold. Over the following weeks, millions more troops poured into France. Paris was liberated on August 25th to jubilant crowds. Allied forces pushed toward Germany from the west, while Soviet armies advanced relentlessly from the east. In December, Germany launched a desperate counteroffensive in Belgium, the Battle of the Bulge, but was ultimately pushed back. In the Pacific, American forces were island-hopping toward Japan, capturing strategic positions at enormous cost. On Iwo Jima, a tiny volcanic island, nearly 7,000 Americans died in a month of fighting. At Okinawa, the battle lasted 82 days and cost over 100,000 casualties on both sides. Japanese kamikaze pilots deliberately crashed their planes into American ships in suicide attacks. The end of the war. In early 1945, the end came swiftly in Europe. Allied forces crossed the Rhine River into Germany, while Soviet troops surrounded Berlin. Hitler, trapped in his underground bunker as the city burned above him, married his longtime companion Eva Braun, dictated his final testament blaming everyone but himself, and on April 30th committed suicide. Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 8, 1945, celebrated as Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day. After nearly 6 years, the war in Europe was over. But Japan fought on. American bombers had devastated Japanese cities with incendiary raids. Tokyo was largely destroyed, yet Japanese military leaders refused to surrender, preparing to defend the home islands to the last man, woman, and child. On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. The city was instantly incinerated, killing an estimated 70,000 people immediately, and many more from radiation. 3 days later, a second atomic bomb destroyed Nagasaki. These weapons demonstrated a terrifying new power. Humanity now possessed the means to destroy itself. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender in a radio address, the first time most Japanese had heard their emperor's voice. The formal surrender ceremony took place on September 2nd aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. After 6 years and 1 day, World War II was finally over. Legacy. The war's legacy is staggering. Over 70 million people died, roughly 3% of the world's population. 6 million Jews were systematically murdered in the Holocaust, along with millions of others deemed undesirable by the Nazis. Entire cities lay in ruins. The world map was redrawn. From the ashes, a new order emerged. The United Nations was founded to prevent future global conflicts. The United States and Soviet Union emerged as superpowers, beginning a Cold War that would last decades. Colonial empires crumbled, leading to independence movements across Asia and Africa. And the atomic age began, forever changing warfare and international relations. World War II remains the defining event of the 20th century, the largest, most destructive conflict in human history, and a stark reminder of both humanity's capacity for evil and its resilience in the face of darkness, i.e.,